What is going on, Diablo 2 fans? Dobrunsky here. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a pure mana energy shield Nova Sorceress build. So it's really exciting because with the introduction of patch 2.4, they fixed a long withstanding mana burn bug. So essentially these crazy insane like 5,000 plus mana Sorceress builds are now viable. And I think this is great for the game for a variety of reasons. One being you get to use some different alternative items. So things like Silkweaves or even Frostburns might actually be more valuable. There's some budget weapon options like memory staffs, which you can use on the offhand. So it kind of, to an extent, negates in some situations that kind of dependence on CTA and Spirit on the offhand. I do think that's a good thing. And then also just in general, like gameplay and build diversity. I think it just opens up different choices with energy shield and telekinesis investment. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'm going to break down quite a few things, including a couple tips to try and maximize your mana output, but not wasting runes like Perfect Sapphires versus Sur runes. Then I'm going to go over a couple build options, and then I will break down a 200 FCR pure energy shield setup. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Again, if you guys do enjoy this YouTube content, I do stream twice a week on Twitch, and I got the link for my Twitch channel in the description below. So any follows on that platform would be very much appreciated. That being said, guys, let's jump in. So there is a lot of things that I want to cover for this video, and the first I want to mention is that energy shield is not actually a new build. I just want to get that off my chest. I've seen so many people go off in the comment section and forums. It's not a new build. It's maybe a new viable option, but it was exactly the same in 2.3 and it was exactly the same in LOD. The issue with going like 5,000 plus mana and having 400 life was that when monsters had the mana burn attribute, they would zap way more mana than what was intended. So imagine telestomping with the Nova Sorceress. You have 400 life, 5,000 mana, they hit you with mana burn, they zap all 5,000 mana instantly, and the only thing between you and dying is 400 life. That's the reason why these pure energy builds were never used. So I just wanted to first mention that. Second point that I want to talk about is a couple different items that you can use to maximize your mana output. Now there's a lot. Some of them are sort of traditional, everyone knows them, like the Stone of Jordan, but small mana charms are really good for this build now. So those can actually roll up to 17 to mana. Ideally, like a perfect charm would be 20 to life, 17 to mana. Just want to point that out. So people aren't actually hunting for an impossible to find 22 mana small charm. There's also boots and gloves like Silkweaves, Frostburns, Arachnid's Mesh Belt. They all have additional plus maximum % mana. Now I do want to stress this one point. This is very important. If you compare the total plus mana that you get from wearing, let's say, a Griffin's with a Sur rune in it that gives you plus 5% to maximum mana versus a Griffin's with a Perfect Sapphire, it's almost exactly the same. It's sort of the same idea as like a Perfect Topaz in a helmet versus an Istrune. The difference is negligible, so if you really want to go all out on a pure mana build, save yourself the Sur runes and go Perfect Sapphires, unless it's like the end of the ladder and you have all kinds of wealth, and I guess you like the look of a Sur rune versus a Perfect Sapphire. Now I do want to talk a little bit about Energy Shield as well. This skill caps out at level 40, so you can't actually go any higher, so that's something that you might want to pay attention to with like a Torch and an Annie, then plus skills, and if you're using memory on the offhand, because anything higher than that is just wasted skills. So make sure you adjust your hard points accordingly so you don't exceed 40, because it's just going to be wasted skill points. Now telekinesis is a very important skill to synergize with Energy Shield. That's because it increases the efficiency, which basically means that you take even less mana % damage. So there's a couple of builds that, in my opinion, work a lot better with Energy Shield versus ones that don't. So two examples off the top of my head, Frozen Orb or Nova Sorceress. These two skills, you can completely maximize your damage output and then still have enough leftover points to put 20 into telekinesis and 20 into Energy Shield. Now this is not the case with builds like a Blizzard Sorceress or Lightning Sorceress. By the time you maximize all your synergies and like your 1-point wonders like Teleport, Warmth, and Frozen Armor, you don't have a ton of extra skill points left to invest, so you're not going to have as efficient of a version of Energy Shield. Now I do want to point out that it's also situational, because in some areas, one hard point into Energy Shield, and then one hard point into TK, and then going max Vitality and just using Energy Shield as a supplement is not a bad option. So the pits would be a really good example. A scenario where it's not very good, in my opinion, is like Bell Running and Souls. The amount of damage you'll take from Souls will constantly zap your mana. So it's, again, situational if you guys want to play around with a 1-point wonder build. I do want to talk a little bit about the Memory Staff. This is a great way to get up to plus 9 to Energy Shield on the offhand. So the Rumored Memory is very cheap and it rolls plus 6 to memory, or excuse me, rolls plus 6 to Energy Shield. Now, if you can find a base that has plus 3 Energy Shield, that can give you a total of plus 9. So it's a great way to get a huge investment to your plus skills for Energy Shield with relatively low rune investment. It's also a really good option to use on the offhand if you don't have a CTA yet. So that is kind of everything that I wanted to cover in terms of sort of tips and tricks and which builds I think benefit the most from Energy Shield and TK investment. Now we'll take a look at my 5,000 plus mana, 200 FCR Nova Sorceress that takes advantage of a fully maxed out Energy Shield and Telekinesis skill points. So taking a look at the attribute points, this seems so weird to say. This is a max energy build, so I've made so many max Vita and max Dexterity setups, just feels really weird to go over. But looking at the base life and base mana, again this is prior to a CTA buff, I have 322 life, 3,640 mana. So it seems very squishy, but trust me, with the rework of Energy Shield, or sorry, the rework of Mana Burn and combined with Energy Shield, it's actually a very tanky build. I do want to point out that there's a lot of versatility in terms of like different gear choices. Like if I wanted to sacrifice 200 FCR Breakpoint, I could throw on Frostburns and that will actually crank my mana up to almost 4,500, getting that extra 40% increased max mana. So do you want to go for a specific Breakpoint? Do you want to go for more damage, more mana? It's a lot of different ways to sort of optimize this build, so that's one thing that I do want to point out. But again, in terms of attributes, just enough strength and dexterity to equip my gear, nothing into vitality, everything else in energy, and I have completely capped res in held difficulty. And moving on to the skill tree, 1 hard point into frozen armor, 1 hard point into warmth, and then lightning I have 20 into static field, nova, lightning mastery, energy shield, and telekinesis, and then 1 into charge bolt, lightning, chain lightning, and teleport. Now I don't actually have a fully maxed out energy shield with this setup, don't have that 95% absorb. I could achieve it if I used memory in combination with some lightning skillers in the inventory, but I chose to go all mana small charms. There's definitely so many different ways to optimize. Like I said, 105 FCR, 200 FCR, do you go a split of vitality? Do you go all in on mana? Do you go all in and absorb with like a decent amount of mana? Just a lot of different ways to build it. So I want to point that out again. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys would tweak the gear at all. And moving on to the gear, this setup is using a lightning faceted wizard spike, a perfect sapphire griffin's eye, 220 caster amulet with mana, spirit, a faceted viper magi, arachnid's mesh, 2 SOJs, silk weaves, and then Trang's gloves. In the offhand, I have CTA and spirit. So there is the option of carrying like just a sword and then having memory in the staff, and you could flip between the two to get extra energy skill points for energy shield. Again, it's totally up to you. A lot of different ways to spin this build, but the inventory is a torch and an Annie, and then all different assorted 17 mana small charms. I was trying to really go for that like high-end mana build. Mercenaries Fortitude, Chan Vigaze, and Infinity to boost the damage. Now again, talking about like the base life values I wanted to touch on, a couple simple gear swaps, like if I was to throw on Hodo, Frostburns, so right there I'm sacrificing a different breakpoint, but I have much higher mana pool. And if I wanted to, I could go perfect Sapphire Shaco, 4,342 mana, sacrificing a breakpoint. Again, you could throw on lightning skillers for more damage. There's a lot of different ways to spin this build, so that's something that I wanted to point out. But that is kind of how I decided to break down this build. So I'll do a couple Chaos Sanctuary runs. We'll go players 1 and then 3 of them players 7. And you can kind of get a feel for how tanky this build actually is. So we'll start off with a players 1 difficulty Chaos Sanctuary run. Now I'm going to do something that you might argue is a little bit kind of tedious, but I'm going to carry memory in the offhand just so that I can get a little bit higher of an energy shield and just switch back and forth between CTA. Now you don't have to do this, but it does switch the absorb from 88% to 95%. So it's up to you. I do think that it makes the build a little bit more tanky, getting that extra absorb. You can see when I'm fully buffed up, I have 5,000 mana and 468 life. So we'll do a quick seal pop here. Players 1 difficulty. And then we'll do players 3. Just seems so weird having like 5,000 mana, but it's totally fine. Used to that max vitality lifestyle. Now the damage output is not that insane, that's true. I mean, with more lightning skillers, you could have like faceted griffins. There's a lot of different ways you could tweak it. You could even use like Crescent Moon, go 105 FCR breakpoint, just to get a little bit more damage output. But I was trying to really like show the extent of like how tanky it can be with the high mana pool. Now, higher difficulty settings, you'll probably be like tele-stomping, a couple statics, and then Nova. That was just our player's 1 run. Okay, so now we'll reset, do player's 3. I know that kind of memory staff swap is a little bit annoying, but it does make the difference between 88 absorb and 95% absorb, which is probably helpful when you have a very low mana pool. That's player's 3. And we'll switch memory. Cast energy shield, go back to the main hand. So this is player's 3 difficulty. We'll notice a little bit lower clear speed, but I'm really just trying to demonstrate more like survivability, if anything. And I'm not even carrying, like, I have all mana pots, right? I don't even have life potions right now. This is where you can see the clear speed starting to slow down a little bit. Now we could throw static field into the mix, like a couple statics, and then switch to Nova. But I think the biggest takeaway here that I'm trying to illustrate is just how we're fine with having such a low life pool. We're not getting zapped. Nothing is like eating up our mana instantly. Although I should probably grab a couple life potions. I should maybe have like 1 belt of life potions or something. We'll do that for the next run. Did I miss a seal? I think I missed a seal. Okay, so Diablo, players 3. I mean, no full rejuves, super mana, super healing potions. This is a really fun build. Okay, and now we'll switch to do player 7. Now, I personally don't even think player 7 is a really good measuring stick because there's very few builds can actually run through the game on player 7. Like Hammerden, maybe Foden now, Jabazon, Poison Necro in some specific scenarios. But we're on player 7. Your little memory switch here. That extra +9 skills. So still okay clear speed on these guys. Try and throw static in here a little bit more. Bunch of statics. Okay, immune to lightning. I'll have to rely on the mercenary for that one. Go, Merc, go! So I just think the survivability is the coolest thing. This is not a hammered in at all. Static, 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 static. Telestomp, Nova, players 7. So I did lose some mana and life there, but I mean, you could plot. But this is... it's player 7 Vector. Very cool stuff. You have such a large radius on your static field, too. Novas. Now let's finish off with Diablo. So I'm having to pot a little bit more in player 7, but I think if you weren't looking for like an AFK players 1 or players 3 setup, like you wouldn't even have to think using energy shield. A little bit slower boss clear speed too, but I don't think that's kind of the you know, it's not really what you're aiming for with an Nova Sorceress is like a boss killer. It's more of like an AoE monster farmer. But again, guys, let me know in the comment section below what you think. I think this is a huge shift in the meta for Sorceress. Again, I genuinely didn't have like super expensive gear. Like you could switch out the Griffins for Shaco, Wizard Spikes, Spirit. I mean, I guess I did have Sojas and stuff like that, but an Infinity Mercenary. But overall, for the most part, like you could use more budget alternatives, right? Like I said, Frostburns for your gloves, go 105 FCR breakpoint. You could use Crescent Moon, a perfect Sapphire Shaco. You could farm areas like the Arcane Sanctuary or some of those red portals that have no lightning means now with an Insight Mercenary. You could still get a very high mana pool. I mean, 7 MF, 17 mana small charms are probably hard to achieve as well, but I mean, you could get like 10 to 17 plus mana small charms. But overall, I think this is a very interesting build, and I think there's some cool possibilities with like budget sorceresses using memory on the offhand prior to having CTA and whatnot. So overall, I think this is kind of a meta shift for the sorceress, which is interesting. Again, guys, let me know in the comment section below if you guys agree, disagree, if you would change the gear, any feedback. All feedback is welcome as long as you're not a dick. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you could throw a like on it, that'd be awesome. And I'll catch you guys on my next video or live stream. Peace out.